Okay, everyone, I believe we are 10 o'clock and ready to begin. I'm going to unmute everyone here in a second. I just want to make sure that everybody can hear what's going on. All right, so I just unmuted everybody, I believe. Oh, nice touch. I'm going
Who did that?
Who did that? Where's that from?
You're so cute.
I like it.
Is that a Zoom bomb?
It might be a Zoom bomb.
Oh, sir. Come on.
It's all right. I will meet everybody here in a second. Sorry.
No. Come on.
Who was that?
Come on. It's okay. Come on. Come on.
All right, I'm muting everybody here. Here we go.
Take you in the shower. Come on. Come on. No shower. It's okay. It's just snuggly. Come on. Come on. Just snuggly.
Okay, I think we're set now. I think everybody is muted again. And I'm going to call the meeting to order. I see we have several residents that are joining. Thank you very much for joining in. Sarah, I see you're here. Thank you very much. And a couple other residents, so thank you. And I'm going to unmute my board members and staff. So be patient here for a second. I think everybody's on board with here. Let's see here. Unmute. Oops. Do I have everybody here? Unmute for Brian. Unmute. Why is it not clicking? I hate that. Oh, more people joining in. Patrick, are you available to help me out here?
I am, and I am. See 5 board members all unmuted.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Could I get a motion to adopt the agenda?
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Thank you, Debbie. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from David. Thank you very much. I will move into the discussion items. Motion or management update. Steve, you want to go ahead and handle that?
You gotta unmute yourself, Steve.
I got it. I just, yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Okay.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, good. Yesterday, I sent the weekly work from home update to the board members. Quite a bit of information in there. We spent most of our time last Friday going through all of these. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it this morning because we do need to concentrate on the community standards section this morning. But the one item I want to talk about is just a quick update on the food trucks. I know that there's been a lot of questions about it on Facebook and through the back porch. So JR, can you just give us a quick update of the food trucks and where we stand today? So someone probably have to unmute. Oh, there you
go. Food truck is still scheduled to come today. There is one actually scheduled for tomorrow. There's nothing scheduled after that. They're waiting to hear back from me. I know that on Wednesday they had 60 people and they did sell out early. And yesterday they had 45 customers. We do have a staff member down there that is checking on them that marked off the roadway as far as social distancing. He said there's been no issues. He said everyone who's come has been cooperative. He said there's been no issues with the trucks, with the owners, anything like that. And, you know, everyone's been adhering to the guidelines.
And Jared, what's your take on us moving forward? I mean, this was just this week, right? So as far as moving forward, we can go either way.
Yeah, this isn't, I mean, there's no contract here. I mean, we're not receiving any financial gain from this. This was just an offering. It's something different to kind of put some normalcy out there. It was a lunch hour thing. You know, I'm not married to this, so this can go either way, whatever the board decides.
So I think just to add on to that, I think we can fully understand the concerns that some residents are pointing out. Again, I think we were just trying to do something to alleviate some of the concern and just sitting inside of our houses all day. So again, we'll leave it to the board. It's not something that's set in stone.
I think all the board members are unmuted. Steve, do we want to just continue on with the report, or do we want to have conversation and discussion regarding the food truck right now?
Yeah, let's go ahead and talk about the food truck right now.
Okay, perfect. Did somebody want to start the conversation on that? Brian?
I've read pro and con. Some people tell me we're nuts, and some people tell me they like the idea. I'm certainly not wed to it one way or the other. The argument I've heard is that there are businesses downtown on the boulevard, et cetera, who have overhead to cover and the food trucks don't. I welcome input from others, or if there are residents online, I'd love to hear their opinions. Okay, perfect.
I'll go ahead and unmute for resident comment once we get through the board. So I will open that up to outside comment also. David, do you want to go ahead and I'm just going down the list here. So David, comment.
I too, like Brian, it's pro and con. So a context is we're going to be in this for the long haul. This will be several months. It's not going to be end of April. It's going to be several months. So I offer that just as we think about what do we do. So my sense is if there's controversy around this, then why go down that path? Let's just not do it. And if then there's different kind of controversy and, a month from now that we want to bring it back, we bring it back. But for now, I'm reading comments both ways. So I'm saying, why go down the path of controversy?
Well, I think the most controversial thing I just heard was you saying it's going to be several months. Why don't you educate everybody on we're all reading stuff, so why don't you follow up on that comment a little, David?
I'm going to interrupt on that one for a minute because there's still comments specifically with this. So let's go ahead and do that. And then David, if you want to go ahead and address it, is that reasonable to everybody? Because Diana, go ahead, and Diana, you have a comment with regards to the food truck. Go ahead.
My comment is, with the amount of business they're doing, are they interested in still coming back? I mean, is 40 people or 60 people enough to make it worth the food truck's time to even continue this?
JR?
As far as I know, yes. Until they decide they don't want to. When we talked to the organizer that we use for our normal monthly food truck Friday, he's the one who put out the call to see, because they're doing, like I said, they're doing this in some other places. And he said that he actually had to pick and choose who to bring down because he had a waiting list. The trucks aren't getting the normal rally, so they're picking up wherever they can. I know that they're in Orlando and they're up in Winter Park. They're over in Lake Nona now. So I think the trucks, as long as there's business there, I think the trucks will continue. From a business standpoint, I think that for them, they don't have most of them don't have a brick and mortar establishment that they can rely on or do take out from that. So I think they will continue to come if we want them.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Debbie, did you have a comment?
No comment.
Okay. I don't see Kevin on here, but it might be a blank number. So.
Actually, Vanessa?
Yeah.
Something. I do concur with David as far as the length of this. From what I'm hearing, and again, we're all hearing from different areas. I'm mainly talking to the pandemic expert at the hospital, but. And I know David's involved in a group, but I think if it's something for discussion and involves the residents who have opinions about this, that could be moved to the meeting on the 22nd, perhaps as an agenda item.
Yeah, I think that's something that we could probably discuss. We'll open up to comment here. Let me see what we've got. I'm not opposed to having the conversation in our meeting, so we'll just. Is there anybody else on the board that is interested in speaking up on this? Okay,
Vanessa, if there's not, do you mind if I add a comment real quick?
please.
This is not a mission critical service that's being provided to the community. This is just something that we thought might be nice, just to break up the day, give people opportunity to get out during lunch. We're practicing the social distancing. There's tape on the ground to keep people 6 feet apart. I certainly understand the concern that the 2 or 3 restaurants that are open downtown for lunch, that this can take away from them, or even the other restaurants within Celebration. But I don't know that, we're through Saturday, we can just stop. And then if we do go months and we want to bring it back in May for a week, we can do that again. But instead of spending a lot of the board's time on this, I think we should just let it end through Saturday and then revisit it next month if we want to bring it back again, if we're still in our houses.
Okay, do we want to open it up for comment now? No, my plan was to open it up to residents for comment. Is that something that you think is okay?
Yes.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, okay,
Yes.
I just want to make sure. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to take here. I've never done this before, so please be patient. I'm going to unmute all, which is very dangerous, as we just witnessed. So, but I'm going to unmute all, and that way I know that there are some residents that are on. If they have anything specific to the food trucks, I'm going to open it up. So I think I unmuted all. All are unmuted. So I'm going to take a dare. Is there anybody that would like to speak up?
I'm here. I would like to. This is Laurel Rousseau. Can you hear me?
I can. Go ahead, Laurel.
Okay, great. First of all, thank you for doing these meetings. I did my first Zoom meeting with CDD the other night, and I greatly appreciate it. So I like this format, actually, rather than having to come sit in the 851 build. I'm just going to throw that in there too. But
so do we.
Yeah, right. Exactly. This might be something that stays. So I wanted to just sort of jump in. I didn't know what was going to be on the agenda. I just gotten the newsletter, and so I was looking at it. But I wanted to say, I think my thoughts are twofold. One, being downtown, seeing how few people are, a lot of people out exercising, very few seemingly are necessarily utilizing the businesses. And I only know that just anecdotally by walking around. I don't know for a fact how their sales are, but certainly, concerned for those who are trying to kind of keep going. So that's one thought. My bigger thought is I worry about, on the one hand, like if we were going to sort of do a push in many ways, and I know you think this would not be coming from me, it would be really to sort of push and assist the businesses that are here, any of them outside of downtown, Boulevard, whomever. But even aside for that, I'm concerned about the message that it sends, because I will say, even when I get out and exercise each day, and on the one hand, I'm thrilled to see so many people, and for the most part, people are trying to be really good. Like if you're coming up to somebody, you cross the road and you are on the other side, or you get into the middle of the road because there's virtually no traffic. I just think we're modeling or encouraging almost like more activity out than we should be. And in some ways, the only reason I'm not, I'm happy, I guess, to see people out exercising is because I genuinely think it's very good for us to be moving and getting fresh air and so forth. But it's still concerning because sometimes those, not everybody is thoughtful about the 6 foot distance. And I'm sometimes a little shocked when somebody just kind of blows on past, and if I haven't thought to move out of the way fast enough, et cetera. So I know there's the 6 foot distance. I know, I would say certainly if you were to move forward that you would need to require masks to be on the people that are in line. I just think there need to be some pretty decent oversight. And then just generally my concept, or my comment, I guess I should say, is just what is that almost messaging to the community? I feel like until we get into May, and maybe we see something on a larger, nationwide sort of stance, already we're all watching the news, acutely on, China's re-entry, what are we seeing on second wave? And I don't know, on the one hand, yes, we all have cabin fever and we need to get out and move and do things, but it's definitely not critical. And I'm just concerned, just concerned. So just a thought on what it sort of message it sends.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Any other residents that have a comment with regard to this? Again, I think everybody is unmuted, and thank you for being patient. Go ahead. Anybody else? Okay. Then I am going to remute everybody. Okay, I think we're all remuted here. Okay. Steve, Patrick, can you help me unmute Steve wherever he's at? There he is.
I'm
Oh,
unmuted.
you're unmuted.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Go ahead.
Well, and then I just wanted to open it up for questions for the rest of the report, if there's any specific questions that the board has.
Okay. I'm unmuting board members here too. I think you have the ability to unmute yourselves too. Oh, Brian, go ahead.
Well, why don't we make a decision about the food trucks? Let's just not leave it hanging.
Right,
I'm with you.
exactly.
I
Can
mean,
we go,
I'm with you.
on everything I'm hearing, my recommendation would be that we go through Saturday, we stop it, and then if the public outcry is great to bring it back, we will have an answer.
That's fair enough. Do I have a motion with regards to the food truck from anybody?
was that Brian's motion?
Brian, what is your motion?
My motion is let's do the food trucks through Saturday and then let's cease it and wait to see what the public says.
See if there's a demand to come back. Is that what you mean?
And I think David is a second. Yes.
I'm a second.
Okay. Okay. So Brian, motion, David, second. Any other discussion from any board members? Okay. All in favor? And I'm actually going to we need an actual poll. So I'm assuming Brian and David are both ayes. Debbie, are you an aye or a nay?
I'm abstaining. I don't vote for anything not on the agenda.
Okay. Diana?
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. And let's see here. Do I have anybody else on here?
You,
Me, I'm in favor of the
Oh.
plan.
Who was that? I'm sorry.
Mary Ann.
Thank you, Mary Ann. I don't see your number on here. Sorry about that. Thank you, Mary Ann. Oh, there you are. I see you now. And I'm fine with that plan. Any opposed? You're just abstaining, Debbie? Is there any opposed? Okay. Motion passes. Okay, Steve?
Again, we'll open it to the board if there's any questions on the weekly update that I sent yesterday.
Any other questions from the board? I don't see any hand raised. Everybody read the update, I hope?
David has a question.
David, I don't see your
Yeah.
hand up. Okay, go ahead, David.
yeah, or a comment. Just as we start to look forward, Steve, when you talked about IT and Zoom setting up, are you starting the process? I know you say committee meetings. Are we really starting that process to have the committees? And I know that ARC was doing some electronic approach, but how about the other committees?
At this time, I believe ARC is the only one scheduled. Patrick was working with Technology Committee to set up a meeting. Patrick, do you want to comment on that?
Right. We haven't set up a date as of yet. However, we are moving forward with, I believe it's Nikki's Parks and Recreation Committee. They have a meeting scheduled later today.
And they're going to use Zoom?
Correct. I've already set them up.
Good.
Again, my point is about all the committees, lots of great volunteers, lots of ideas. And I know that, well, it's just starting to think about how we're going to move forward with the committees and so forth. And, you know, with special events, we had some things for April, we had some things for May and June and so forth. And as we start to think a little differently, how do we do that planning and just engaging this technology to do that?
Yeah, and our original plan that we sent out for the work from home and the stay-at-home order was through May 4th. And we did provide some updates in those plans about the different committee meetings and what they would be doing. So we're under a full assumption right now that May 4th is the day that we come back. Now, if the news changes and we get another order that we're in our homes through the end of May or through the middle of May, then I think we need to reevaluate, reassess any mission critical work that needs to be done. We'll get the Zoom up and running and we'll get them going.
Good. That's my main question. Yeah.
Yep.
Very good. Any other comments,
and
questions from the
board? The board's been a great guinea pig for how to use this process. So I think that we'll be able to transfer it over to all the other committees very easily.
Any other
Just-
board member?
Thank you for that, Steve. Just as a side comment, I'm watching a lot of different webinars related to this. I watched a lousy one yesterday. So that would be a good example of how not to do it. It's not one on technology. It was something about distance learning, but it was anyway.
Thank you. Any other comments from the board with regards to the management update? Covenants process, Steve?
So yeah, for the covenants process, Susanna has been working with myself and Susan. She did the majority of this work though, and put together this post-pandemic plan on what it looks like when we return back to some sort of normalcy. So Susanna's on the call, and I'd like for her to just kind of go over this with you guys.
Okay. Susanna, I think you can unmute yourself.
She's unmuted.
Yes, I'm good. Good morning, everyone. So the letter went out to the residents on the 8th, discussing the plan for this month. You can hear me?
Yes,
you're good.
Good job. Good job.
Okay. Okay, that's great. Yes, talking about our plan during this month, which of course is suspend inspections and meetings. The topic for today is what we'll do, like Steve said, when we come back to business at Town Hall and resume activities. That may be May 4th, that may be later, but it's an outlook, kind of a plan as we move forward, because we understand, everybody does, that this has affected families, individuals on so many levels. I know that the Disney furloughs affected my family alone, and I know so many people out there that work at Disney this is affected. So there's financial considerations. There's also, contractors out there that are having difficulty keeping teams on to get work accomplished. So there's those hurdles. I know that, stores are selling out of things just like pressure washers and equipment that people want to use to try to accomplish some of their maintenance items. And so, going back to semi-regular business, of course, after the stay-at-home order is done, we're going to focus on more things like orderliness and cleanliness of properties, not so much on the minor things as far as aesthetics. So just some example bullet points to discuss. Trash and debris. And, we can refer to the Exhibit C that was recently revised. It says no trash, rubbish, debris, garbage, or other waste material or refuse shall be placed, stored, or permitted to accumulate on any part of a unit, except, of course, in covered or sealed sanitary containers, and they must not be put in position for pickup before 7 p.m. on the night before the garbage is scheduled. All sanitary containers must be stored out of view from the front facade and out of vehicle roadways and alleyways. Also for recyclables, recyclable containers must not be placed outside for pickup prior to 7 p.m. on the night before scheduled pickup, and they must also be stored out of public view. So that's just, focusing on trash cans, of course, trash, and we've had a few calls from residents already, keeping that in an orderly fashion, putting it in your trash cans, putting those out when they're supposed to be, moving them back after they get picked up. Also parking restrictions, of course, I get calls about those right now. Parking on the grass, commercial vehicles and RVs and such staying out past the time for loading and unloading. Cleaning of sidewalks, porch steps, walkways, driveways, patios, fences, general cleaning that homeowners can do. Sidewalks are especially important, of course, because the trees, we have so many beautiful trees in the street, and the shade from them causes algae on the sidewalk. So keeping those clean are really important for the neighbors that walk throughout the community on the sidewalks. Lawn maintenance, of course, is a strong one. Anything that, homeowners can do outside, pruning and keeping the lawn maintained, weed control, mulching. We always say spring and fall, whatever homeowners can do, of course. Repairs to broken items, those are important just to keep up. If you see something broken, to try to repair it best you can. We will not be focusing on major maintenance like painting of homes or cleaning an entire house or roof. We realize those will be challenging at this time. Also, we won't be focusing on minor things like painting a porch light or painting a mailbox, or things that just aren't related to the cleanliness and orderliness of the property. Modifications to homes, of course, always require ARC approval. So, we have ARC up and running. We have community standards running to process applications, and the ARC committee has been fabulous. They've been voting on the applications. We've been sending them out. Of course, we're here to answer any questions, and we're going to do our first ARC meeting later this month. We're also here to answer any homeowners' requests for extensions based on their individual needs, because every family is different and the challenges that they're facing. We put an extension, I know Brian, you mentioned last time, October 1st. So that deadline's up for discussion, whatever the board wants to use as far as an extension. But as for now, we use it whatever based on individual needs and challenges that they have. So I welcome any feedback.
Do I have any board members that have a hand to raise or any comments?
Yes, David does.
Go ahead, David. Go ahead, David.
So one comment or one question about your prior email, and then 2 comments about what you've prepared here. On the prior email, which was very good, thank you. What questions, if any, have you received since sending that out? And I would, as you think about whatever questions have come in, you don't need to answer this now, but as questions come in, think about a follow-on email, perhaps in a week or 2, that says, hey, here's the earlier email, and we've gotten a few clarification questions since sending that out. Here are the answers to those questions that have come in from you, the residents. So just that's my suggestion on what you did. I think it was this week.
Yes.
Then on this current one that you've sent, 2 things. What is the planned timing of sending this document out? And then the other question, and having looked at that this morning, I don't have a suggestion, but just look at the order of things, kind of tiering it from the most important. I don't know that I put trash as the #1 bullet. So just look at the order. So, the big picture, because that's what you're saying. We're looking at the big picture. We want to maintain our standards. We're not going to be too picky right now. We have a lot of flexibility. We want to work with you. I think that's your message.
Well, David, can I just add though? I think that the message is probably also, these are things that probably can be handled even when you're at a stay-at-home order. The other things probably aren't, because they're a lot bigger, and all the reasons why Susanna listed earlier when she started talking. So just say that. So I'm just wondering, what's the timing on this one? Well, can I just offer a recommendation for the timing? Right now, we're under, again, the assumption May 4th is our return back to work. So if that stays, I would say the last week of April we send this out, because remember, this is post-return from the stay-at-home, post-pandemic. So I would recommend the last week of April. Now, if we get more information that now we're closed down for May, then I would hold this until the end of May. Does that make sense? Or you can, alternatively, there's no reason not to send out 1st of May, because we don't know what the date's going to be. There's going to be 3 separate dates, in my view. You'll have other than adding more stress to people that are already probably pretty stressed right now. And we just sent out this week how we're doing it while we're in the stay-at-home. So I want to avoid as much stress, and I want to avoid confusion to homeowners as much as possible too, because I don't want them to confuse what post stay-at-home orders look like versus what we're doing right now.
If I could step in for a minute, I just want to say, touching on both your topics, David, after the letter was sent out on the 8th, my staff said that immediately the team got emails immediately from homeowners within minutes. People saying, I'm working on this, or I finished this, or I need a little bit more time, I'm going to rent a machine. So we got feedback immediately on that. Also, I would say that so far the communications I've been getting from homeowners that we have been related to debris and trash on properties, people not picking up. Also, commercial vehicles have been a big topic, especially, Spring Lake, they have such a hard time over there with their limited parking. So that's kind of why I put those first. Of course, we can rearrange those based on importance, but that's been the general feedback has been cleanliness, has been commercial vehicles, and also unapproved changes.
Okay.
Debbie had sent me a text. Debbie, you want to go ahead and make a comment, and then I'll go to Diana and Brian. Oh, is she muted? Let's see here. Oh, I will unmute her. Okay, Debbie, I think you're unmuted now. Go ahead. Did you have a comment?
Yeah, Susanna, I thought the first letters that we saw were very good. I want to mimic what David said, because then what I saw next was all about trash. To me, that was not the message that I think you may have been trying to get across. I think as far as stressful, and I know Steve has mentioned that, Steve has mentioned a lot of times our priority here is the virus, but I haven't seen anything or very little that we've relayed to the residents that is our number one concern. What comes across to me as our number one concern now is trash and your recycle receptacles. Have we maybe want to change that to something what we are doing to keep the community safe, or what we were doing as far as making the virus our priority for our residents?
And Susanna, if you don't mind, let me just real quickly, Debbie, I think you do hit the nail on the head here. Susanna did that originally, and I asked her to turn this into bullet points just for discussion for the board. But when this goes out to a letter to the community, then yes, I think that needs to be first and foremost. We need to address that. We completely understand that these are just unprecedented times. So that will go back in. But for the purpose of today's conversation, I asked her just to keep it in bullet points.
Okay.
Thank you. Debbie, any other comments before I move on to Diana? Okay, Diana, go ahead.
I'm glad that you got a lot of responses back from the initial email that went out to everyone. I'm just concerned that we still need to keep getting to people. I think David's comment about let's continue to get that communication out is important. The pandemic, after the pandemic, I don't think we're to the point of needing, I understand we've got to get it ready, and then, but I would, definitely put that on the back burner. But I like what Steve said about adding what we're doing to address the virus, although that, it does fall under CROA, but it doesn't really fall under covenant specifically. But we need to just make sure that we're completely open in our communication. The first letter was exceptional, but I think we need to keep putting that out there and making sure that we're getting to everyone first before we go to the next step, which is the after pandemic.
Thanks, Diana. Brian?
I have two comments. I would send the letter out closer to when we're going to go live, the way Steve implemented, so you don't create confusion. But what I'd be really interested in from Susanna and others at Town Hall is how many calls, are we getting fewer calls and emails? Are we getting the same number of calls and emails? Are we getting more? What is happening communication-wise? Because I haven't really heard that. And it's hard to assess if people have shut down or if this is a time when they're cleaning out every closet and sending every email.
Yes, we're definitely getting a steady stream of phone calls and emails, especially ARC communication is coming in steady. I'm helping taking those calls for Jessica and trying to keep up with the ARC applications that still keep coming in on a steady basis. An average of 4 to 5 to 6, 7 are still coming in for things. I do have a log that I've had Denise keep track of as far as incoming calls. There's 10 to 15 a day, talking about past covenants items, asking about extensions, their personal items on their property. It's pretty much been covenants and ARC related. So those are the things that we're addressing and, notating homeowners' files based on their situation. So it's definitely has been steady, has not dropped off. I can get numbers.
I just want to add also, so each one of the department heads, when we get a voicemail, it comes through to our voicemail, it comes to our email. So we get those directly on our house. But Laura does get a direct phone line also that she can then transfer to other folks. So Laura, if you're on the phone, you can talk quickly about just the numbers that you're seeing for just regular phone calls.
I'll unmute her. Laura, are you unmuted now?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, perfect. Go ahead.
So the phone, I know on my end, when people call in and choose for the business office, it does ring through to my phone. Clearly, I'm not always available to answer it, but most of the time I do try to. I would say there has been a little bit of an influx of more calls. I don't know if that's still because we're in the beginning of this whole situation and people are just trying to figure stuff out, or if it's going to go down from here, or if it's going to stay steady the whole time. I'm really not sure. Speaking of which, I do have the front desk helping to return calls as well. They have the ability to return calls. So we're trying our best to stay on top of them, but I would say there's a bit of an influx, not massive, but there's definitely a bit of an influx from what we normally see.
I'd also like to just reiterate that, so the letter that went on the 8th was to say, okay, we're going through this situation, you know, we're suspending covenants and hearings and fines at this time. And then there was discussion about, well, when we do come back, what's it going to look like then? Is everyone going to have to go back to normal and try to scurry around and do those things? And so this outline today was more to say, okay, no, that's not going to happen. We still have to maintain some standards, but it's going to be focused more on, you know, a different direction than, you know, the minor and more intricate stuff that we used to. And here's kind of some bullet points to consider. But that, of course, will happen after the stay-at-home order is lifted and we see where we are at that point and the challenges that people have. How's that sound?
I think, thank you, Susanna. Steve, any questions or any follow-up on that?
No, I think that from what I'm hearing from a consensus of the board is that we'll make this more of a letter format. It sounds like everyone's okay with the content that you're seeing in here. We'll make this more of a letter format to the residents. We're going to definitely address that. We completely still understand that we're working through these challenges of this unprecedented pandemic that we're dealing with. But we're going to wait until closer to the end of the month. Good thing is we're doing Friday meetings. If for some reason we hear May 4th isn't the date anymore, then we have a couple Friday meetings before that time to kind of regroup as a board and management company, and then we can determine a date to get this out. But I think Susanna did a really good job on putting this together, and the feedback from the board was great. So I think that we have what we need to be prepared for this when we're ready to go live again.
I agree. Just for clarification too, sorry about my dog barking. For clarification too, everybody, there is no staff at all in town hall working. The front desk staff and everything is all working from home. Is that correct? You have a couple of people that are in town, but not working at the 851 building, correct?
Everybody's working from home, but unfortunately there are times where we have to go in to do something. So it's periodically. Like I know Susanna's doing once a week drive-throughs of the community, and so she'll stop into the office when she does that. Tim is still doing service area projects, so he has to grab stuff from the office, but there's nobody permanently working in the office right now.
Right, so front desk staff that was getting their calls and everything from their home, correct?
Everything's being forwarded to homes, correct.
So I thought, okay, perfect. Just making that clarification.
Yes.
Is there anyone on the board that has a comment, question, or anything like that before we move on from the management update and covenants process?
David does.
Go ahead, David. Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's fine. I don't think this was part of this discussion we just had, but as we reframe this letter that's going to go out whenever things do open, should we not also address in this same letter what our reopening looks like? Meaning, you know, whatever time there is, whatever date there is, here's how we look at reopening facilities. Because to me, we're not well, couple of things. I don't think it's going to be a matter of a date and we throw the switch. I know that government officials, whether at the state level or local level, there will be a date and a time, you know, at midnight on such and such a date. So a couple of points. The discussions at the national level, and we're seeing this in other countries, is to tier that, to go stair step, not all at once. And so I know that that would be the proposal. The other discussion that I hear is just because the larger entity allows it, for example, the state of Florida allows it, does not mean that Osceola County allows it. So we're under both of those guidelines. Separate comment, this is a future discussion, I think, is what does our reopening look like? Just because Osceola County or the state says okay, does that mean we say okay? And when we say okay, how do we define that? So it seems to me that this letter should also include what our plan is that we would need to discuss. What is the reopening plan?
Thank you,
I
David.
think that's a very fair comment. And it's definitely on my mind on what that plan looks like to open back up. The good thing is the way it was shut down, we can reopen very much like we do when we reopen for hurricanes. We just got to unstack and those kind of things. So we have that ready to go. But I just don't think we have enough information right now to fully lay out what that plan, because that plan could change to B, C, and D between now and the 24th. So we can be prepared by April 24th. If nothing changes and May 4th is still our day, we'll have something ready for that April 24th meeting that we can roll out. And ultimately, like you said, David, it is your decision on your amenities on how we want to do that. So we'll be ready by the 24th with that.
Right. And that does not mean that residents will be ready, because I think there's a lot of caution.
Sure.
Yeah. Dave, Brian, you had a comment?
Yeah, I mean, this ties into David's earlier comment a while back in this conversation when we were talking about trash hooks. And I said, and he said several months, and I said, well, we need to talk about what that would mean. I mean, we've all been reading it, but I mean, David's points are valid, but also I think impossible for Steve and Susanna or anyone else to respond to, because is the date May 4th? Is it June 4th? Is it July 4th? Is it August 4th? It's almost like 2 weeks before we open, we need to have a conversation. You know, we all know the drill when we have a hurricane lasts 3 days. We all drive around, it's a disaster, it's not a disaster, but it's been practiced and we know what's there. I mean, if we're shut down for 3 months, the rules are just totally different. And anything that we're thinking in the middle of April will be wrong. And so these are valid conversations. I get it. But I'm afraid we're too fast. That's my point.
Got it. Thank you.
But it is something that I'm thinking about, though. I mean, I was out in Celebration last week, and I did have a quick conversation with Brian when I was out there, and we're talking and we're thinking about these things. So again, I think we've done a really good job of following the source of authority. So our initial source of authority was the CDC, and we went with the 8-week recommendation, and the board took action and they closed down all the facilities for the 8-week time frame that they laid out. Then Osceola County gave us direction, and we went with that direction. Then the state gave us direction. So as they start loosening the restrictions that they put in or give us new restrictions, we'll adjust and adapt to those.
Well, and my point.
Brian, wait a second, Brian, go ahead.
Well, and then we can go to David, but I mean, Larry Kudlow, who's a very connected person, yesterday came out in public and said that the administration is hoping they can reopen the economy in 4 to 8 weeks. To me, that was one of the most telling statements you've had. We went from Easter to we hope in 4 to 8 weeks, which speaks to what David had said, and he'll probably follow up on this, but that's why I think we don't know.
Go ahead, David.
So I would argue with make two broad points. One is something I said a bit ago, just because the authority says such and such doesn't mean we need to go with that. I mean, we honor the restrictions, but we can stay more restrictive. And then the other thing that I am guided by is health experts, and I'm not guided by the political people. So the political people are making political points, but when I hear health experts, and I'm dealing with the CDC, Health and Human Services, and then more specifically, the American College Health Association. So when I see all of that, we're talking about the long haul. And so I want to err on the side of health and safety for our residents, and that will be within the legal constraints, but we may not jump when they say you may jump. So that's my bias, listening to health and safety first.
Well, hopefully the health experts are lining up with what our elected officials are lining up with. That makes your jobs much easier. Now, when they start conflicting completely, then David's exactly right. You guys are going to have some decisions to make at that point.
Because we are obviously not going to be doing anything within the next, at least the next 2 weeks on anything, Are we good to move on to the next conversation? The key performance indicators? I don't want to cut anybody off. So is there anybody else? Raise your hands or send
Yeah,
me a text
Vanessa, the
or
only
whatever.
other, I just want to ask Susan real quick because she'd spent some time on this. Is there anything you would like to add, Susan?
Is she
I think
muted?
we've said, I unmuted myself. I think that we've said everything that needs to be said. I think at this point in time, we just don't know enough to be able to make decisions.
Okay, Debbie, you had just texted me. Go ahead. Are you muted? Second, let me find you. I'll unmute you. You were unmuted, Debbie. Go ahead.
Okay, there was a request from a resident about another blood drive, and JR said that they had looked at one, but they need a access to a restroom. So I just wanted to throw that out. I don't know if it's something you guys want to talk about at the next meeting or if the hospital's in need of blood, but we heard they are. So I'm just putting it out for JR to look at and any board discussion. Thank you.
Thanks, Debbie. Any comments, or do we want to do this by email? Do you want to have the conversation? I know Debbie, you forwarded me the message on email. Do you want me to just do that conversation as email, or do you want anybody else?
Kilwins is open.
Go
Kilwins is
ahead, Go ahead, Steve.
Open. How about I just work with JR and JR and I can talk about it, and then I'll communicate with you and the rest of the board.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Anybody else in regards to that? Thank you for bringing that to our attention, Debbie. Anybody else have a comment? Okay, key performance indicators. Before you move on, Steve, I would like to say that the KPI is exactly what UCF put together. So as we move forward, you did exactly what the board instructed, and I'm saying this for the benefit of Debbie and Diana, who are not part of the KPI with UCF sustainability study. So this is something that was very important, and Steve and the staff all did exactly what needed to be done. So so thank you very much, Steve. And now I'll go ahead and open it up to you, Steve, to direct the conversation.
Yeah, thank you. Just a little bit more background to that. As the board was discussing, how do we determine what our key performance indicators are? How do we determine where we are achieving success based on data and metrics versus just emotional responses? They decided to hire Dr. David Mitchell through UCF. And one of the challenges was trying to identify a outside group that could come in and work through this process with us that has a basic understanding of homeowner association management and a governance understanding. So Dr. Mitchell was selected, and he went through a few month-long process with myself and my staff to just lay out everything that we do, all of the action items that we do, and then worked with the board through a few work sessions last year to identify which ones of those are the most important for us to really report on a regular basis. So this is our first opportunity to get it in front of the board to show you what those KPIs, what those metrics look like from December of 2019 through March of this year. Now there's one piece that's still missing with this. So you're seeing what those numbers look like. And I think taking a look at the big picture really does kind of tell the story of how things are operating in Celebration. But there's one piece that's missing, and that's strategic planning, which was passed through the charter changes as a mandatory function of the board. And I believe that once we get back together, we're going to go through this process. But part of that will be identifying what are the markers or the numbers that we'll set as what we're trying to achieve. So I'll pick anything. If we're looking at a percentage of something and we're saying 85% is that target marker for it, and we're at 80%, then the follow-up would be, what are we doing to try and get us to 85%? Now, if we're at 85% or above, we should all be saying, wow, we're doing really well in that area. We're right where we've predicted to be, and we're right where or above where we're supposed to be. So I think you're seeing the first phase that is being rolled out with KPIs. The strategic plan, though, is going to be a huge part of this to move us to that next level. But you have those numbers laid out there in front of you, and we'll keep updating that on a monthly basis. Now, I also have another piece that goes with this. It's kind of like a graphic certificate that compiles the information quarterly. And that's something that I can work on for next month, that we can just put it into one sheet that will show kind of a glimpse to the community what we're at. But this kind of lays out all the numbers with some notes on the side for it. So that's my background on it, and I'm certainly open to taking any questions or comments that you all have.
Brian, go ahead. You have your hand up.
Yeah, I think I want to confirm that we are putting together a full board book for the 22nd of April meeting. Susan's shaking her head yes, which is a good thing, because I'd like to, as soon as I can get the financials to update like what I did for the board off the February, because then we could have March financials, because I think we'll probably have good attendance at our April 22nd meeting. Key performance indicators, yes, we ought to get them in there because it's going to be an excellent time to get feedback. People are sitting at home, they'll probably read things they wouldn't normally read. You know, I would hope that the management report really is short, sweet, but also very much to the point, and it leads us to the discussions that we're talking about here, because I think people will look to this meeting to say, okay, how are we thinking about May 4th? How are we thinking about safety in the pandemic and everything like that? So I think this is actually that. I'm going a little further than KPIs, but I think it's a valuable book. And I really encourage the whole of Town Hall and the board to read this one carefully, because it can build on something that we may need for a couple of months as our best communication effort.
And Brian, we do have the board book fully being put together, but you're going to see a lot less narrative. The direction to the department heads were to really work on those KPIs and then put notes next to it. So that's more of what that board book's going to look like moving forward.
I think that's excellent.
Good.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the board? Oh, go ahead, David. I see your hand up now.
Yeah, one comment and two questions for Steve. First, the comment, Steve, thank you for doing you and your staff doing all the work on this, pulling it all together, bringing it from the UCF report into this. So thank you for all of that. It's going to be very helpful. Two questions. One is, with all of the items that were listed in the UCF report, are all of those in this, what is it, 6 or 8 tab Excel sheet? Are all of them there, or are there some that did not populate? And then the second question is, with the output and quality measures that were there, did you all come up with those, or did Dr. Mitchell and his team come up with those? The measures themselves, like number of work orders and number of requests completed. Did he come up with those, or did you?
Yeah, okay. So I'll go to your first question first. You have everything that is outward facing for the community. So everything as far as the level of service that we're providing the community, those are all in there in those tabs. Now you'll notice some of those tabs have NAs. Some of those events just didn't take place through that first quarter or in December. So as we get to those, they'll be populated also. There is an internal piece also though that I haven't fully implemented yet, but it's more for the executive director and the community manager to really look at the functionality of the team and how the team's working and communicating. So that's an internal piece that you guys also got with what you paid for. I haven't fully implemented that piece yet. So to full disclosure, not all of them have been filled out yet, but all the output stuff for the level of service has. So your second question, output and quality measures. Again, UCF brought this process to us. So they walked us through step by step. And the answers that you see are from the questions that they asked, the different parts of their process on how we determine that. So we didn't just make anything up that's in there. It was all based on the extensive series of questions that they asked us, and then how they all tied back into what they considered output and quality measures.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice to see the report and then see this, and this is really the dashboard for us.
Yeah, so Dr. Mitchell would ask me a question, or the department heads, and we would go into you know, what we know internally on how things run, because we're inside baseball. We understand how it works. And he'd say, well, no, what I'm looking for is this, this, or this. And so then we would refine and we get to where we got to for this final product.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions from the board? Okay. Before we move on from this, because that's the end of our conversation, I would like to know, since we have several residents on, I'm going to give this a try, because obviously we're preparing for a board meeting, so I'm hoping I'm not going to jump into anything too much here. If residents have a comment or anything like that, I'm going to take hands from them if they'd like it, and I can unmute them. You can, if you want to, if you're just on video and you raise your hand and you want something, you can do that. I can also try to, I'm going to unmute all. And if you have something to say, that will give you an opportunity. All I ask is you give your name and your address.
And Vanessa, while you're doing that real quick, Vanessa, I just want to add real quick while you're doing that. The KPI conversation that we just had, it wasn't part of this packet, but it will be in the board packet that will be posted the Wednesday or the Thursday before the April 22nd meeting. So all residents will have an opportunity to look at that through the board packet, but it wasn't available for them today.
Perfect, thank you.
Oh, okay, okay, that's good, yeah.
Any resident, I just unmuted everybody. So if anybody has a comment or question, I'm opening it up to you. And I'll give you just a second here, and then I'll mute everybody again. Anyone? Going, gone. Okay, I'm muting all. Wait. You can unmute yourself if you need to, though. Okay. All right, so everybody is muted. Steve, go ahead and continue on.
I was just pressing buttons on my iPad. I don't have anything else to add.
Okay. As a UCF, just because Steve because Debbie and Diana are both new, they never received the UCF study. Is it possible we can go ahead and get that out to everybody? I think that's something that would be important.
I'll email it to the board today.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I think that's important that everybody sees what's going on. And it was in the board packet at one point in time. I just couldn't honestly tell you what month it was, so it'll just make it easier. However, it is available to the residents to search things through too. Any other comments, questions, board members? Oh, Brian, go ahead. You are unmuted. Go ahead.
The next item is April 17th is our next meeting, but we haven't formally agreed that we're going to do the 24th and the 1st. It would seem like we need to agree to both of those. And at some point, I would find value in how the board meeting is going to differ from these meetings. I mean, Debbie made the comment earlier today she wouldn't vote on something because it wasn't on our agenda. I have thought these were pretty free-form meetings in which we were going to raise issues and to decide what we need to react to. And even in the board meeting, because we're operating in different times, if something comes up, are we going to vote on it? I mean, I think we should be pretty open to having conversations now about things that are raising. We live in different times, so we need different rules.
Go ahead, Steve.
During our initial stay-at-home order report that we submitted, we did recommend that we don't do the Monday night workshops or the Monday day workshops, that we just continue on with these every Friday. So we did not have them scheduled up through May 4th.
Correct, and I think that was the general consensus, because we're trying to keep it to an hour. So we've been trying to do that. Debbie, you have a comment here. Let me find you and I'll unmute you. Go ahead, Debbie, you're good.
Yeah, thank you for your comment, Brian. These were sent or presented to us as updates. And again, just as someone who is more conservative, I don't vote on anything that's not on a agenda for a meeting. The workshop voting is something that came across more recently, and that is newer to the board, but as far as an update, I won't vote. Obviously, if there's an emergency or something that is necessary, that I would consider an emergency, but the food trucks was not something on the agenda, so it's not something I would vote on. Thank you.
Thanks, Debbie. I'll mute you again here. Brian, you had your hand raised still?
Muted.
I'm trying to unmute him. Oh, there we go. Brian?
Okay, I was muted, sorry.
Okay, I was like, I'm not sure why this is working. Okay.
To be critical of Debbie, I was really trying to understand how the rules are going to work, because I agree when we originally set these first couple of meetings, we were trying to figure out basically, was Zoom going to work and how is this going to evolve? I personally don't believe that town hall is going back to work on May 4th either. So I think we're going to have a lot of things that we have to discuss between now and whenever. And so that's why I believe these things are going to get very free-forming, and we're going to need them to get free-forming. And, you know, I don't know if the board meeting is going to get free-forming too or not, or if it's going to be very structured and we use these. I don't have to have an answer now, but, you know, if everything has to make the agenda for one of these, we haven't been floating these agendas. We've really been leaving them pretty open and simple. Then we would have to even think about the agendas.
Can I just I'm going to make a quick comment, and then if anybody has any comments beyond that, please feel free to respond. What I think, I right now, because of the situation we're in, we're really only doing critical business, or we're trying to. As things come up, we get emails, we get resident feedback, like the food trucks. That was something that was new. Last week we said we would give it a try, and it was something that was pertinent to making some decisions, so JR knew what direction to go for next month. So that was, I think that was the only reason why it was addressed. I don't think the residents will care one way or the other than they will reach out to us if there's an issue. I like having just the quick hour meetings because, again, we're not doing any big business. It seems we have more residents. We have more residents on here now, and names that I don't recognize from any of the meetings. So having this particular format is actually, I think, is helpful. So I like that, and I think when we move into our regular meetings and we're in person, I think we need to figure out how to incorporate our Zoom into this. And now that we've actually, I would hate to throw away the meeting format that we've established out of a necessity. And make sure that we still have this available for everybody. I think our board, what we've really tried to do, and I think based upon the lessons of our third Zoom meeting, we've really tried hard to stick with Robert's rules. And I think we need to stay with Robert's rules. So, opening it up, we're trying to do different things, especially with public comment coming up for our first board meeting. I want to make sure that we're all on the same page on it. We're really trying to not have big discussions and make big decisions that require a lot of public feedback. So based on that, is there any board member that have comments or anything like that?
Yes.
Go ahead, David.
Yeah. I'm glad you raised Robert's rules because that's what I wanted to say. Generally, we do operate under Robert's rules to the best that we can. And any published agenda, when it's published, does allow for a new item to appear on the agenda and to be voted on, even though it's not listed. And I know we're under emergency considerations now, so that even gives more permission to vote on things. So I'm glad we did go ahead, and I know that there's going to be future issues that come up with a meeting that may not be noticed. The meeting would be noticed, but the specific topics are not, and that's all allowable with Robert's rules.
Debbie, you had a comment. Let me find you here and I'll unmute you.
It's back to Robert rules, and thank you, David,
Go
for
ahead.
bringing. Yes, back to Robert rules. Thank you, David, for bringing that up. And Brian, under Robert's rules, when we are on item 2, which is adopt agenda, that is normally where something as a change in the agenda or something to be voted on is brought up, and it requires a second. It's not normally under discussion that we bring up an item for vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. Susan, go ahead. Go ahead,
Yes.
Susan.
I was just going to say, someone had mentioned, I think it was Brian, that the action items for the board meeting, that agenda is pretty much finalized at this point in time, and I'm working through it. But all of our resolutions that are usually approved in April are on that agenda, as well as appointing members to all the committees, with the exception of the new finance committee. And then we've got our a lot of standard things, but we've only got 4 action items that are outside of the norm.
Thank you, Susan. Comments from any other board? Anyone? So as of right now, we have it. Flexibility is good. Thank you, Marianne. Just got her text box. It's just flexibility right now is it's hard. So making sure we try to be flexible to make sure that business at hand is taken care of. Thank you, Mary Ann. So just for clarification, our regular board meeting is still going to be scheduled for Wednesday, April 22nd. We all agreed upon that last week. So we're just going to continue with our board meeting as scheduled as the 22nd. I think to Brian's point, sticking with the 17th and then still doing our Friday calls on the 24th, and at least until we're back to new business. Because again, we're not doing regular workshops. We're trying to deal with business. Is there any other comment on that? Oh, I'm sorry, I see your hand now. Go ahead, Brian. I think, you're muted. You muted yourself. Okay, here we go.
Yeah, I had said the 24th and the 1st. For example, if we were going back to business as usual on the 4th, we would want that meeting on the 1st very bad.
Okay, so right now we're saying the 17th, the 24th, and the 1st. Diana, go ahead. Oh, I don't hear you here. A second, Diana, I lost you. Oh, I don't see that. Let's see here. Oh, there you go. Diana, you good?
I muted myself. Yeah,
Oh,
I
okay.
muted myself.
Okay.
I've learned how. Okay. I think the regular board meeting, I think we have to be we still have to have that. And I like these the Friday mornings, because we can hit some things that, that are upcoming. And, at the beginning of this, we had more issues that we had urgently to discuss. But I would still keep these Friday going and keep them, as we talked about, go ahead and have the monthly meeting as planned. Because I don't mind doing both.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments from the board? Okay. So any other business, Steve, that you wanted to address? Or are we good to move? Are we good to end our meeting?
No, the only other thing I wanted to offer was just everyone have a very great holiday weekend. Enjoy your families and happy Easter.
Yes, thank you very much. I agree. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So
I think I heard a David was it a David and a Brian that I heard?
Perfect. I think Brian won though.
Okay.
Brian
All
won.
right. Well, Brian motioned and David a second then. And I love seeing all the new residents on here. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Please continue to join in and provide any email feedback or reach out individually to any of the board members to provide feedback if you have any suggestions on how to make this better. We would much appreciate it. Thank you all. Meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Bye all.
Thank you.
Be safe. Enjoy your Easter.